what would you say is the biggest or most common blind spot that you see in organisations?
People accepting the defaults and running with them. Just because you're in the cloud does not mean that you're secure. And I think that's something we do see time and time again. And immediately when we go into a new organisation or we've got a new engagement, we will scan that. We will look for vulnerabilities.
Behind every Microsoft partner is a story of growth, a story of ambition, and a story of people pushing themselves, their businesses, and technology further. Every week here on Microsoft Mentors, the podcast, I speak to business, technology, and thought leaders from across the Microsoft partner ecosystem, offering mentorship at scale to the Microsoft partner community. So let's dive into this week's episode of Microsoft Mentors, the podcast. Hello and welcome to another episode of Microsoft Mentors, the podcast. And today I'm super excited to be joined by Iain Williamson. Iain, how you doing?
Yep. Hi, Ollie. Nice to be here.
Glad to have you here. We've known each other vicariously through LinkedIn for probably a couple of years now. With the nature of the social media world that we live in, you have this relationship with someone that you don't necessarily talk to or haven't spoken to. And then we caught up a few weeks ago for the first time. It's crazy, isn't it?
It is. It's surreal because, like you say, it's probably, blimey, the time does fly, doesn't it? But our paths have crossed, I think, a number of times through various chats and engagements. But actually sitting down, having a conversation is it's like, meeting a famous person for me, really. I think it doesn't happen that often.
I'll take that. But I think one of the things that we spoke about, and I think what is going to be really interesting to unpick during this conversation, is that we obviously live now in a world where everything from, people's attention spans to people's tenures in jobs is all shortening and condensing down into shorter and shorter periods of time. I think, last time we looked, and obviously impacted by COVID and the economy, the average tenure in tech roles in the UK is around sort of 18 months, 2 years. You are the antithesis of that, having been at Intelogy for the last 20 years. But if you just start off with sort of where you're at now, I guess just a little snippet on who Intelogy are as a business, what you guys do, and sort of what your role is there at the moment, if that's all right, Iain.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm the lead of the cloud platform and security practice, have been since about 2018, I think, when we kind of restructured a little bit to cater for that. As an organization, we are first and foremost Microsoft. So if it's in 365, we deal with it. That's everything from Power Platform through to teamwork, employee experience, and obviously the security elements that I look after as well. So, essentially we help customers with the adoption of the cloud services, the return on that investment that they're making, making sure that they are as secure as they can be, and just providing those experiences to make their lives easier, and obviously the staff inside those organizations as well.
Yeah, cool. And like I've alluded to, a journey of growth for yourself and the business over the last 25 years. So with you and your career, did you start your career straight into Intelogy? Did you do any roles before that? What did that
pretty much? I think, it's fair to say I wasn't the most academic when during the education years. So I had a few jobs after kind of school and college, hospitality, travel, that sort of thing, but nothing with any kind of real direction or prospects. The apprenticeship schemes that we see today and a lot of organizations make use of just simply weren't really a thing. So you tend to flounder a little bit. But through word of mouth, I got an opportunity with Intelogy to have an interview. So I sat down with the MD and the support lead at the time, and ancient history from that point on, really. It was a good kind of relationship that was struck up at that point. At that time.
And were you technical at that point? Had you sort of always had an interest in technology? What did that look like?
An interest, I think that's fair to say. My my mum was a Microsoft certified trainer way back in the day, and Visual Basic programmer after that. So I'd had exposure to that kind of industry. We'd had PCs at home, which thinking late 80s, early 90s, that was largely unheard of, or at least you'd have one family computer at that point in time. But I'd kind of grown up with them a little bit, and I'd always been the guy that people would go to say, oh, it's running really slowly, or I've got a virus, or how do I clear the browser history on the family computer, that kind of stuff. So you'd always get those kind of queries come through. It was an interest to me. So again, not really having a direction early on in life. It was just something that, well, this is something that aligns with me personally. Let's explore this avenue.
Yeah. And so you sort of joined Intelogy back in 2001. What, just give us a bit of a picture as to what the technology landscape looks like in that time, because there'll be listeners, and this is going to scare you a little bit, Ian, but there'll be listeners in their early 20s that have got no idea what some of these technologies are. But what did the world look like then?
So predominantly back then, Intelogy was a kind of application development house, software development. So born out of Lotus Notes back in the day. So we would extend or build business applications on top of the Notes Domino platform. My early years at the company was kind of supporting those apps that have been developed by the development team. And again, it was a very small company at that point. I joined not long after it had been set up by the two owners. And I guess working in a company that size at that age, it's probably more like the startup culture that we see today, where there's a group of people coming together, similar mindsets. You kind of feed off the ambition and the enthusiasm that everybody has. And again, being quite small, you're close to what's happening. You can see the results, and ultimately you kind of just buy into that fact and feel like you're part of that journey with them as well. So yeah, it's as I said, back then it was Notes Domino and supporting those applications. Not long after I joined, the direction changed slightly to be more Microsoft focused. Our technical director is very good at foreseeing the future, it seems. So again, kind of moving away from or diversifying a little bit with some other technologies. So again, being young, being agile, just being interested, it was a case of sticking my hand up, getting involved with different things, different exposure to things like HTML, CSS, a lot more of the admin side of things. So again, small company, we need to have systems running, we need email, we need web servers, we need development environments, that sort of stuff. So again, just feeling around, getting my sticking my head up above the parapet, I guess, just to say, look, what can I do? Where can I be of use? What do people need me to do? And just kind of getting that mentality of looking for things to do, keeping busy, trying to broaden your horizons in terms of the different tech and options that are available. And ultimately moving more towards the Microsoft focus, kind of mid 2000s, really.
Yeah. I think there's a good lesson there, right? Which is, especially if you are in a smaller type organization that is maybe a little bit more all hands on deck at times. I think having that predisposition to put your hand up and say, well, actually, that's probably not in my my remit, but there's an opportunity there for the business to open up a new service line. There's an opportunity for me to learn a new skill and diversify my skill set. And I think working in those smaller type businesses, that's really important, especially if you want to go on the sort of journey that you've been, which is to then continue to develop and sort of progress within the organisation. Because a lot of the time you've almost got to help the business see and create that next role for you, haven't you? Because sometimes it's not just there.
Yeah, and again, it's exploring the opportunities that are of interest to me as well, because ultimately you don't know what's there until you go and find that out. So yeah, as I said, I started off in support. Infrastructure was something that appealed to me more than the software development side of things. So again, that wasn't something the business offered, but as we grew over the years and moved more into SharePoint development, back in the days of on-prem, we were doing that work, that extensive work for clients to build on top of SharePoint, build those line of business systems, build intranets, build websites, all of that, extranet platforms, those sorts of things. But there's an underlying technology core there that, didn't really, or the knowledge for that didn't really exist. So again, it was learning that stuff, being able to do it for us, but also then take that out and say, yeah, if you can't get SharePoint installed, we know about Active Directory, we know about SQL, we know about Exchange, we know about SharePoint, we know about externalizing it safely through reverse proxies like TMG or UAG, all of that Microsoft technology stack, and just embedding myself in there really was kind of where, yeah, it just made sense. It was something that appealed to me, and it wasn't something that anyone else was actively looking to do in the company of that size at the time. So again, it was just taking that on and taking ownership of that.
Yeah. And I guess just sort of circumstance of where the business had been in sort of the Lotus Note world. Obviously, the big dominating player that came over and basically killed Lotus Notes was the Microsoft ecosystem, and originally BPOS, then Office 365, and obviously now through into the Microsoft 365 world that we know today. So I guess there was probably a lot of opportunity as that sort of early Microsoft Cloud world started to evolve, that actually customers that you already had and had worked with, a number of years building and managing their Lotus Notes environments, they probably all started putting their hands up and going, we want some of this Office 365 work, right?
Yeah, and again, it kind of happened before Office 365. There was a significant shift to people wanting, the on-prem products that Microsoft was shipping before then. So, if you had Exchange, the natural kind of partner to that was to look at SharePoint, one of the early versions of SharePoint. We were doing projects in STS and WSS3 and 2003, that sort of thing. So it goes back a long way before the advent of, like, say, BPOS, and again getting some exposure to that, mainly migrating people out of it but into Office 365 later on. But I do remember kind of having that inflection point when Office 365 first landed, and it was very simple in terms of we've got SharePoint, we've got Exchange, it's all online. And obviously the benefits there are you don't have the infrastructure, you don't have the cost or the maintenance to deal with that. But actually comparing it to what you could get if you did stand it up yourself, it was a challenge to recommend that to a customer, to say, yeah, do it over here. If they had nothing, then it made sense to start somewhere. And if they didn't want infrastructure or that overhead, going into early doors 365 was worthwhile. But actually, feature parity wise, it took a long time for SharePoint Online and Exchange Online to have the kind of features that we knew and loved on-prem that made life easier and people were familiar with. Obviously, that's far surpassed now, and it was the cloud-first direction from Microsoft a number of years ago. Stuff will land there first and then be ported back on-prem if it's at all applicable. But again, the early days were interesting to see where it was going to go, but it was really hard to kind of make any kind of push to get people on there when they were used to these on-prem platforms that gave them far more functionality, really.
Yeah. And obviously, having been with Intelogy for 25 years now, and if we think about the change in technology paradigms across that whole period, like you say, from something like Lotus Notes into on-premise Microsoft technologies, into 365, then into Azure, then into, as we sort of move forward into where we're at now, into this whole new AI revolution. Lots of considerations around security as well, which is a massive topic now. How have you seen, both, I guess, on a personal level, but also on a business level, how have you and Intelogy dealt with those changes in technology, those big paradigm shifts? How have you handled those pivots in your own skill set and what the needs of the business are as well?
Yeah, so it's, as I said, we've got a fantastic technical director who sets the overall direction for the company. As I said, I've been a practice lead since 2018, which is when we'd had the explosion of 365 and the services were there. People were migrating on, even if it was just email to start with. They were then looking to make further use of the services that came along with those licenses. And it was becoming very apparent that you couldn't just have one person that knows everything inside out. So that was probably the first point where the explosion of the cloud, moving away from 3-year release cycles where you could get your head around what was there and what you could do with it, to monthly cadences or quarterly cadences, and actually keeping on top of that, meant that more people had to take ownership for specific disciplines, or have a more focused approach to the services that we could offer our clients, because there was far more tools available to be able to play with, to be able to secure people, to be able to make people more productive. That for us was a point where we were able to be more cohesive as a company, because we could offer everything, and we had people with that depth of knowledge in various pillars across that ecosystem. I think in terms of that, and understanding, what we as a practice offer, obviously that's an evolving piece as new functionality comes along, but there was a clear boundary around, the security suite. So things like Entra and Intune, Defender, Purview, and just understanding what are the value propositions of that, helping our customers kind of cut through some of the marketing jargon that gets pushed out, and just be able to kind of simplify it to, well, what am I going to get if I do that? Or how's that going to help me? Or, how can I prove that this is a return on that investment that we're making, and things like that. Some things are very, very easy to sell, phishing resistant MFA. You show them how easy it is to be able to compromise an account, and immediately the conversation is, how can we get this in? How do we roll this out? Other things that again, potentially have a bit more change management around them. So again, a lot of these things are not just platform level stuff and IT turning it on. There is an element of change management that needs to be introduced as part of the program as well. So if you're asking people to label content or classify information or deal with retention policies, then that's got to be fed through. So I think it's understanding the needs of the client, as well as the direction Microsoft is taking the technology in, and being able to bring those together and be able to have an offering in that space that clients can trust and go on that journey with.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the biggest differences, isn't it? Like you say, that traditional rate of change, which was, new server edition 2008 to 2012 or whatever, you go through that period of change, but then actually you're sorted for the next 2 years. You know what's happening in that particular technology discipline, because everything's set. The world that we now live in is, almost on a weekly, monthly basis. There is change. And, I've worked with partners in the past where they get midway through a design for a customer, and it's almost ready to sort of go into production, and then this big release comes out, and they're like, well, actually, that really works with this solution. We're going to have to try and work out how we architect that piece in. So from a very sort of low level technical level, there's sort of the need to be able to pivot and innovate at a very baseline technical level, but then also at a higher business level, you've got to be able to understand where are the needs and demand of the customer going to be. It sounds like your technical director's got a pretty good sort of finger on the pulse of that. Because you do want to be moving in the same direction of your customers, and being able to offer them value and services that are going to directly impact their businesses and what they want to achieve through technology, right? And from the development of your own career, sort of going from that consultant sort of initially sort of support, and then into sort of more consultant technology type roles, and then transitioning into practice leadership. What did that transition look like for you in terms of going from maybe being a bit more of a doer to being someone that has to think a little bit more strategically and manage a team and manage service offerings, maybe P&L? How did that transition look for you?
It was tricky in that respect, really, because I do like rolling my sleeves up and getting stuck in. And if you give me VS Code and some PowerShell to write, then happy days. I'm your man. But ultimately, that's not the role, and I have people that I rely on to do that, and they do a very good job now. So you're right. It's about trusting in other people more. And the biggest thing for me was well, I've got to do it because it needs to be done right. And actually, there's too much to do at this point. I have to learn the art of delegation and trust that people are going to deliver, and they do. So that wasn't a very hard lesson to learn. It just needed me to kind of hold less balls and be able to delegate down. But ultimately, it's a different way of thinking, because instead of thinking about solutionizing and doing each individual bit on a particular program or a project, it's thinking more holistically around, well, how could we package this into an offering? What are the market trends at the moment? What are the things on the IT director's mind? What are the things on the CISO's mind that we can compile some marketing material or some case studies or something that will be able to appeal to them, and they can see themselves in what we offer. And that's almost a mind shift change as well, because I'm started off very technical. I have a very technical mindset, but actually thinking more business outcomes and the challenges that we can solve for those organizations. That was where it needed to go, and I recognized that. But that wasn't particularly easy, because once I start talking technical, I can talk all day long. But you're not talking to engineers anymore. You're talking to business sponsors and CTOs and CIOs and people like that, who have completely different language. They have different objectives, and you need to be able to make a compelling argument for why this direction is right, or be able to sell the fact that we can partner with you. We understand your industry, your vertical. We've got similar projects and experiences that we can bring to the table, and just really kind of appeal to them at a different level. Managing a team, that was something that wasn't overly difficult, but I'm blessed with a great team. So it's we've always got that kind of mutual respect for each other, regardless of the roles that we carry out. And then if I need to get technical again, I can, and I will help some of the newer members of the team out. But I also have some great senior guys that know the stuff inside out. So again, being able to depend on them to mentor people through projects and stuff as well just helps enormously too.
Yeah, it's difficult when you've done the kind of role that sits within your team in the past. It's hard to not get tempted to be like, oh well, I can just jump in and write that PowerSet shell script. Yeah. But ultimately, it's just it has a negative impact on your own time to do the other bigger picture stuff. It doesn't help your team out because they need to be hands on and doing it. So it is hard not to get drawn into that trap. And I've definitely found that from other people that I speak to that have been through that journey from technical into sort of more leadership type roles. It's also interesting what you say about talking to those different types of audiences, because I think that mindset shift from not technically what does this deliver and how is it delivered, but what's the outcome of it. But also every one of those stakeholders that you mentioned has got a different language, a different metric that's important to them. A COO wants to know about process and efficiency and productivity. A CFO wants to know about cost and return on investment. The CTO or the CISO wants to know a bit more on the technical side of things. And the CEO obviously wants, any solution just to really deliver against their wider business objectives. So it's how do you then look at the solutions that you're working on as a Microsoft partner with these businesses and actually be able to align the same solution into different, priorities and metrics across all of those main decision makers to ultimately be able to support them with their business objectives. And so I guess with where the practice is at now, so you're sort of practicing for cloud platforms and security. What does that entail, in terms of technology stacks and types of, people that you've got in your team? Just give us a bit of a feel for what the makeup of that practice looks like.
Yeah, sure. So I think it was kind of the natural evolution of looking after or deploying platforms internally on-prem for whether it's SharePoint or intranets or custom .NET projects, things like that. It was the natural kind of evolution. Obviously, we don't have servers to look after, but we do have lights to monitor and keep green potentially, or just understanding a lot of the configuration. And again, going back to the early days of Office 365, it was migrations, still is. I think we're never short of about 5 migration projects that are on the go at one time. And that was the initial drive. And we would do server upgrades. We'd migrate from one version to another. So again, it was, okay, we've got data in a file share. It needs to go to SharePoint or Teams or OneDrive, that sort of thing. But initially, as all of the customers started realizing this is an internet service, our networks aren't geared for an internet service because our firewalls are a bottleneck, or we're backhauling traffic over to the US and back again for whatever legacy reasons. So again, it was around the optimization of that, looking at latency, looking at optimizing Teams calls, performance, data access, all of that kind of stuff. And the evolution of that really is that people worked out we can't do things on the network that we used to do. So they needed to change and optimize those, and we worked to kind of make that a better experience for the end users. Again, one of the concepts that's banded around a lot is that identity and devices are now the perimeter. That's just the way it is. You don't sit behind a firewall or a proxy, and your data is in the cloud, and all it takes is one user to be compromised for then access to the system. They can potentially move laterally, they can elevate, they can get to other line of business systems if you've got single sign, and all of those kind of things that are very, very real risks and very easy to be susceptible to. So for us, it's really about the Entra package, dealing with a lot of that. So we would use, we'd be protecting accounts, using the identity governance features, a lot of work inside of conditional access as well, and role-based access. So access packages, if you hold this title or you're in this position and you get access to these services, and being able to deal with the life cycle of both employees and guests as well. It's important to realize that people can be invited in, and those accounts need some management or some oversight to them as well. Intune is a big one for us as well. So looking at protecting those managed devices, application management as well. But the world in which we live in, where you can access this on any device by default. So that, a lot of organizations go, well, we just don't want that. But actually, when you explain that you can control access from someone's personal mobile phone, because actually the benefits are they can read email on the way in the morning or when they wake up, or they can help contribute to content on a Word document from their iPad on the sofa, whatever the situation is, there are ways to do that and make it secure. So again, thinking about Intune and MAM and the device management aspects of that, just ensuring compliance as well. A lot of organizations who need to be aligned with industry frameworks or compliance regulations, being able to show all our devices are up to date, they're patched, they are secure. We've got these controls in place so we can meet the requirements of the auditing body, those sorts of things. Again, Intune is a perfect tool for that. Defender as well. So as the more I talk about this, the remit is quite large. Office 365 and the phishing attacks and the malware and safe links and endpoint DLP, antivirus, or basically Defender itself is a suite of products. And Purview, as I said, for kind of classification, labeling of content, data loss prevention, managing insider risk as well, something that often goes unappreciated, I think, in a lot of organizations, just how, not necessarily malicious, there can be some accidental insider risk, but being able to identify and respond to that accordingly or adaptively as well is something that we can help. So those are the kind of 4 pillars of the cloud platform security practice. That's we've got a good team. Depending on the project, as I said, we've got some guys that know this stuff inside out. If we are working on a program with multidisciplines from some of the modern work team, for example, if we're doing migrations, then obviously they'll be designing SharePoint architectures and retention policies and labels and things like that. But we'll be complementing that with security running through everything that we would deliver. So we're setting up SharePoint, but that shouldn't be externally shared, or we need to have a guest approval process before people can be invited in, those sorts of things. So the team on a project, as I said, multidiscipline, could be a number of people from different practices all kind of coming together. And I think that's that's one of the things that we see as the value add for customers, is that we're not just deploying an intranet or creating some team working areas. We're actually thinking about the bigger, wider picture around security and governance and retention and disposition and all of those kind of key aspects across the whole of the workloads.
Yeah, and I think what's really interesting with what you've explained there, and a lot of the security controls and postures that organisations have to put into place now, a lot of that is driven by what is happening in the real world and how our lives have changed as people, and that's developed with access to technology. If you think late 90s, early 2000s, everyone's going into an office, logging into their physical desktop, which is on the the secure network in that building. When they log off at the end of the day and they go back off home, everything's still in that environment, in that network. Fast forward to where we're at now, like you say, everyone's got multiple devices, multiple touch points. We like to be connected, rightly or wrongly, a lot of the time. And we want to be able to, log into our 365 account on our iPad when we're, on holiday in Mexico because we need to check in on something or whatever it might be. It makes us all sound a bit sad, really, doesn't it? That we're obsessed with being able to stuff, but it's the nature of the beast. So that sort of real world change is driving what has to be considered from a security perspective, for technology teams like yourself. And luckily, we work in a space where Microsoft have invested billions of pounds to give us the technology to do that. But that's where partners like Intelogy come in, because, Dave, the CEO of a manufacturing company in, Bristol, for example, probably knows that that's an issue, but doesn't have, the first step of how to deliver that. And if he's not got a team that can help him deliver that, then that's where, the real value of the Microsoft partner ecosystem then comes into play, of supporting organizations that have been able to achieve things like that, isn't it? Whether it's cloud deployment, whether it is security management, whatever it might be.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, the days of a transacting partner are long gone. I think that's been the case for a number of years. Being able to sell licenses is one thing, but actually being able to help customers evolve with what they're buying and to get the most out of that and prove that investment is worthwhile and get things set up, configured correctly, get the strategy in place. That's where having a Microsoft partner come in and actually understand the needs of the business, but also how the technology can meet the needs of the business, and not just kind of impose, restrictions or blocks. We want to keep people productive. It's what they expect. They have social media, they have platforms outside of work that allow them to do these sorts of things. And with the kind of that generation coming into the workforce, the expectations are that, no, I don't want to have to be on a top in the office to be able to do stuff, or why do I have to VPN in, or all of these kind of considerations that we've had for years, but ultimately need to change because it's just the way people want to operate. It's the way businesses need to operate now as well. So again, just thinking about that whole demographic of who's using the tools, what the expectations are, but also, the way that Microsoft are giving this toolbox and being able to translate those into meaningful objectives that companies can use to stay secure but remain productive is one of the key things, I think, from a Microsoft partner these days.
Yeah. I've got a question for you, Ian. Can we come up with a better solution than multi-factor authentication? Because I hate it.
Funny you should say that. Passwordless. Definitely, that's the way forward, I think, and it's becoming more common, and certainly on a lot of consumer services. If you try and log into Amazon or eBay or any of those these days, it's very much a passwordless authentication system, and that's something that we're advocating across Entra as well at the moment, because identity is the biggest attack vector today. I think most of the attacks that are coming towards organizations are, they're not targeting vulnerabilities in software. They're targeting users because they're more susceptible. They have, like you say, MFA fatigue, because they're just another prompt. Okay, was it me? I don't know. I've just let someone in potentially. But again, passwordless is using the biometrics of you as a human being, alongside your Entra account to be able to then give you access to the services. So thinking in the sense that Windows Hello for Business, if you're in front of a laptop and it's provided by your organization and you authenticate with a facial scan or a fingerprint or something like that, that's it, you're authenticated. You are the second factor, and it's tied to your devices that are in close proximity to each other. So no longer are you're requesting an MFA prompt and then waiting for something else to ping off before you can then get a number or put your thumbprint on, things like that. It's a more seamless experience for end users, and it's a more secure experience for the likes of the administrators that need to worry about, were we compromised? How do we raise that? How do we identify that? How do we know that that's even happened? Obviously, the zero trust implementation framework says assume breach before anything else. But again, this just goes another step towards enabling that, and removing those legacy MFA factors from the equation.
Yeah, there you go. There's the answer. I need to get you and your team into implement passwordless in my whole life, so I don't have to deal with multi-factor authentication. And then so if we sort of look at where we're at, the start of this financial year, FY26 for Microsoft, they started pushing this concept and this idea of becoming a frontier partner. I think they started to double down on that even further at Ignite. I've just started to see the first few solution partners sort of release that they've got this new frontier partner designation. Is that something that you're sort of looking at Intelogy, and how that sort of feeds into, I guess, working within the ever-moving ecosystem of being a partner and working with those frameworks with Microsoft, and how that'll feed through into customer demand for agentic AI solutions in the Microsoft ecosystem?
Yeah, it definitely is. It's on the roadmap, and I think the bar to entry for partner program is getting increasingly not challenging, but there's more to prove every year. So, if you think back to when it started, it was, do you have some people that have some exams? And it was tick in the box and here you go. But more and more now you're having to prove your value, prove that you're actually delivering to your customers, prove that you're committed to dealing with Microsoft technology and getting it in there, getting the CPOR, the DPOR claims to show the adoption rates that you're actually having an effect on with the technologies. The certifications, again, just the numbers and things like that you need to be able to get the specializations inside of those designations. But yes, absolutely, we are in a full program of always keeping that up to date, making sure we've got the relevant people with the right credentials, making sure that we've got the right customer references, making sure that we are claiming everywhere that we can, and that's just to keep things going. And that relationship with Microsoft and the partner program is, as you probably know, is almost a full-time job just to be keeping on top of that. Yeah. And luckily, again, coming back to the technical director, he's on top of that from a large degree. But everyone else kind of helps out. We know what's expected, we know what's needed, we know what people need to do to be able to drive that forward. So yeah, absolutely, being a frontier partner is on the roadmap. It's something that we will be working towards throughout the next few months.
Yeah, good old Microsoft, always keeping us on our toes, aren't they?
Definitely.
And as we continue to, and we spoke about a lot of the security considerations when it comes to authentication and physicality of devices and things like that. There's obviously a lot of considerations when we look at things like AI tooling and shadow AI's conversations that we've had lots of conversations, especially last series of Microsoft Mentors around organizations not having the right structure in place, and employees using third-party tools like Perplexity and ChatGPT and putting in full sales ledgers in there to work out and potentially causing breaches that way. So how are you advising your customers when it comes to how to take advantage of these AI tools, whether it's Microsoft or third party, but also then how to use them securely as well within their businesses?
Yes, so it's something that we do a lot on, and actually one of them, the Microsoft funded engagement, the MCI offering around data security is one that we actively run. And that in itself is a good opportunity to kind of review people's existing environments in readiness for AI, whether it's Gen AI services like Google Gemini or ChatGPT, Claude, etc., or whether it's actually for coming up with strategies for using Copilot, M365, those tools in that toolbox as well. So again, it's understanding the data. It comes down to the sensitivity of the data and being able to protect that so that it can't be uploaded or it can't be copied or can't be pasted into these generally available AI engines. You're feeding another model at the end of the day. So it's a conversation that comes largely down to understanding what you've got in place at the moment, where those permissions are. Because what AI, certainly Copilot, is very good at doing is just showing the holes in the security model that have always been there, but it's just AI works a million times faster than the human at finding information. So it's not causing a problem. It's just identifying one that's already there. So again, we've been working with organizations to kind of understand that permission model, make sure that we've got protections in place around the content that's inside of their environment today, and looking at ways to kind of protect that moving forward. So sensitivity labels to extend that protection around the files wherever they are. It doesn't need to stay in SharePoint. If it's downloaded or tried to be uploaded somewhere else, we're able to then invoke different DLP policies based on the sensitivity label to help protect sensitive information leaving the organization from that point.
Yeah, and I think that's a consideration that's going to have to, organizations are going to have to continue to look at. And I think it's definitely one where, as an organization, even if you are a more traditional business that maybe isn't as technology focused, and maybe you think that, well, we don't need that much AI in our four walls. Regardless, your employees are going to start using it. If it's the HR team needing to do a quick review of a contract, or the finance team wanting to manipulate data quicker. If you're not giving them the tools to do it, then they're going to go and find their own tools, and they're going to take your data with them to try and do it, aren't they? Exactly,
and you can't block the tools, because as soon as you've blocked one, another one's popped up, and it's being baked into so many products these days or shoehorned in, should I say, to every product, whether that's Adobe, whether it's Salesforce, whether it's any cloud platform that you're using, will have some form of AI there that will look to be used in conjunction with that as well. So again, it comes down to, well, what's sensitive, what's important to your organization, what can't be leaked, and just kind of taking it back to basics to make sure that is secure and that it's protected. I think they're the kind of main things that we need to look at with organizations at the moment. And as I said, we're doing a number of programs on that, and it's something that clients are seeing the benefit. We're identifying problems that they didn't know they necessarily had to start with. But again, being able to come up with how technology can fix that. Again, they're paying for this stuff already. Usually it's just about getting the right strategy, getting it implemented, and making sure that they can be safe and ultimately sleep at night knowing that someone's not uploading files and files and files to other AI engines.
Yeah. And what about Copilot for security? Are you sort of being able to leverage that to increase your own capability as a business, and how quickly you can analyze and respond to threats for your customers? Are you leveraging that internally?
We are about to, yes. So I think it was not cost prohibitive, but it was always one of those that it was the barrier to entry was quite high because of the cost associated with doing that. Obviously, the recent announcements of security Copilot being included in E5, that's a game changer for us and so many organizations as well, because I think today we see AI just augmenting human behavior and human work. It's not really where we know it's going with agentic AI, and being able to have that leap to say, well, we've got automated workloads now, so a lot of opportunity for SOC transformations there as well. We've got stuff happening. Let's triage it. Let's act on it. Let's remediate. Using these agents that are now more available, more accessible to any organization with E5, rather than another license, more compute units that you have to buy independently of those as well. It'll be interesting to see where that's going, it's certainly something that we'll be putting a lot of thought and weight behind moving forward as well.
Yeah, and it's the same with any technology, isn't it? Is that especially in the Microsoft world, we see it is that it starts being a little bit more prohibitive on cost. I think Microsoft do that to sort of throttle access, whilst they are getting, even once they get a big release like a product like Copilot into general availability, they like to throttle that, get a feel for how it actually acts in the wild, don't they? And then start to sort of take some of those prohibitions cost-wise or roll back on them to allow more people to get access to them. And so it's been obviously an interesting journey for you at Intelogy, Iain. As I said at the start, I think there's probably a mindset of most people that to move through your career ladder, you've got to move every 2 or 3 years, maximize the progression that you've got in that company, in that role, and then move on, and then stretch and maximize in the next role, and then move on, and eventually, you end up as a practice lead. And you've obviously gone a different sort of path. I mean, if there are other people out there that are in a similar position to maybe where you were 10, 15 years ago, where they think actually this place has got growth opportunities for me if I can be creative with it, and I think this is a business that I can grow and scale with. What would your sort of advice be for someone like that wants to actually have longevity in one business, in one role over a long period of time?
So, I think for me, it was a gut feeling. As I said, when I joined, the company was small. I think at the time, the directors were some 9 years older than me, 10 years older than me, something like that. So again, it was the age of the company and the size of the company just lent for me feeling more kind of naturally at home at that point as well. So, if you get that feeling, and again, working as a consultant and seeing other organizations as well, you get a feel for what it's like in other places as well. So I was able to see, if I was working for an IT department versus an IT consultancy, what does that look like? I'm working with the teams of people where I could equally be in a position in as well. So you kind of get that perspective, and also working for a consultant, you get the variety. So we have clients of different sizes, of different industries, of different capabilities, and again, being able to work with that variety of clients is it's useful for me because it kind of meets all the needs that I have in terms of a job, and gives me more variety to be able to do more work and see more opportunities and help more people, because I get an experience of those different organizations as well. I'm increasingly finding as well that more and more people are kind of announcing, I've been here for 15 years. A lot of the people that were here when I started as well are still here. So that's a testament to the organization too, that a lot of the founding members are still around. But equally, when I talk to clients and they're celebrating 15, 20 years within a position, I think there are people out there who find that same spot that they're in, but also one that means that they don't have to stay still or stagnate, that you've got the people around you that believe in you, or that you can go to with ideas, and it's an open door culture that you think, this isn't working, let's change it, or let's try this, or I've got this idea, and you're actually heard, listened to, and backed ultimately as well. So I think having that culture within the organization is definitely something that I found helpful, and that culture has evolved over time as well to be where it was when I started, to having more people involved, more diverse workforce as well, and obviously changing with the demographic that joins the organization as well. But if you feel at home and you feel supported and you feel like you are listened to, I think at the end of the day, those are the key things for me for being able to stay put.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, awesome journey, and good to sort of dive into some of the key topics that you guys are seeing in the wider Microsoft technology world at the moment. Should we dive into Microsoft Mentors quickfire round?
Try, yeah.
No, as I say, it's never too difficult. It's always a mixture of this or that type questions, or a little bit of sort of your thoughts process, some fun ones thrown in there at the end. And my personal favourite which I always think gets people scratching their heads, is what is your favourite Microsoft product or suite of products of all time?
Of all time. Oh
Yeah.
man, it's hard not to pick a new one because they're all new and shiny. I really did love the kind of the identity management and the threat protection stuff around forefront identity management, FIM and TMG. Those products at the time were just amazing to me in terms of what they could actually deliver and the problems they could solve. But yeah, moving forward, I think it's hard to single out one in my stack that appeal to me, which is why I do the job. But yeah, thinking about the way that we can get them all working together, because it's not necessarily one that can deliver everything, getting them all harmoniously working together. And when you see that for me is magic in terms of getting identities and data and devices all protected together.
Yeah, absolutely. And on the security side of things, what would you say is the biggest or most common blind spot that you see in organizations?
People accepting the defaults and running with them. Just because you're in the cloud does not mean that you're secure. And I think that's something we do see time and time again. And immediately when we go into a new organization or we've got a new engagement, we will scan that. We will look for vulnerabilities. We'll look for things that are as they were when the tenant was set up. And again, if it was set up years ago, those things may not have changed. Microsoft are very good at introducing things by default now, conditional access policies or security baselines or the baseline mode as well. So they are plugging those gaps, but yeah, just accepting those values when it was set up and assuming that all is good is the most common thing we come across.
Yeah, cool. And on a personal level, is there sort of one particular project or moment or milestone over the last 25 years that you're sort of most proud of?
I think, yeah, possibly a few themes. So yeah, way back in the day when we were building SharePoint farms, building 12 server farms with varied roles distributed across them, hot standbys in different data centers. Those were, I think the common theme is the technical challenge behind those sorts of things as well. So as I said, whether it's building SharePoint farms or more recently, some of the larger scale tenant-to-tenant migrations that we've been doing, when you think about everything that needs to be considered and all of the interlinking moving parts of identities and mailboxes and SharePoint sites and groups and teams and flows and Power Apps and forms and planner, and I could go on, Intune devices, everything literally lift and shift somewhere else. It's the technical challenge behind things, I think, which makes a project stand out for me.
Yeah. Cool. And a couple of either or questions. So, personal devices, Windows or Mac?
Windows.
You'd be surprised how many Microsoft mental guests I have that are like, so I'm actually on a Mac.
No, Windows every day.
Teams chat or email?
Teams chat.
Dark mode or light mode?
Ooh, recently dark mode. Because I'm getting old and my eyes need a rest, but yes.
Yeah, I've been converted to dark mode over the last couple of years as well. And on a personal level, you've got an unlimited budget. You just won the lottery or whatever. Where are you going on holiday? Where would be the dream destination?
Probably Maldives, I think. Never been, would love to go one day, hopefully, bucket list.
Yeah, just go and sit on a beach and be brought cocktails and not have to talk to anyone else.
Grass hut, yeah, that's the dream.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Iain, thanks very much for your time. It's been great to know you, or get to know you in a bit more detail, hear a bit more about your journey and what Intelogy are doing in the Microsoft partner ecosystem as well. It sounds like you guys are continuing to grow and innovate in everything that you're doing. So thanks very much for your time. Anyone that wants to reach out to Iain, as always with all our guests, I'll tag him on all the various platforms. And in the meantime, have a great evening.
Thank you very much.
Hopefully you enjoyed this week's episode of Microsoft Mentors, the podcast. Whether you listen to us on LinkedIn Live, on YouTube, on Spotify, or wherever else you listen to your podcast, make sure you follow, like and subscribe. Both myself, Ollie Ridley, on LinkedIn, our guests, and also the podcast. The more people that we know are listening, the more time and investment we can make into the podcast and bring more conversations with our Microsoft mentors and leaders from across the Microsoft partner ecosystem to our community. In the meantime, stay tuned and keep an eye out for next week's episode.